Get ready for a
What the How do I teleport off the map? How do I teleport off the map? It's a blind noob here, back with some more Overwatch 2 Reaper content. In this video, I want to show you 3 things you did not know about Reaper's ability Shadow Step in Overwatch 2. Shadow Step, in case you didn't know, is Reaper's teleport ability. It has a range of 35 meters and a cast time of 2 seconds. Those 2 seconds can be broken down into 3 parts. In the first 0.992 seconds, you can be shot but you can't move, followed by 1.008 seconds where Reaper is untargetable, invulnerable, whatever you want to say. Then for the final 0.096 seconds, again Reaper is a sitting duck as he reappears in his target location. The cooldown for Shadow Step is 10 seconds and is obviously considered a movement ability, so when you're in Mauga's ult or stuck in Junkrat's trap, for example, you are unable to use it. So recently, people are talking about Reaper, but not in a good way. My man has been at the bottom of the DPS food chain for a couple seasons now. Shout out to Cassidy as well. And finally, the devs have taken notice. Kinda. They've mentioned that they're keeping an eye on Reaper to see if he needs changes to some of his abilities, with an emphasis on Shadow Step and Wraith Form. Most would agree that Wraith Form is already an amazing ability and is fine as is. But Shadow Step is considered by many as a throwaway ability. It's useless, it's clunky, it's outdated, I don't know. These are probably the same players that just walk up to the enemy tank and start blasting. And continue blasting. And blasting. And finally, claiming Reaper's playstyle is boring and one-dimensional. But as a Reaper 1 trick with over 400 hours played, I can definitely recognize the value of Shadow Step. It is actually a really good ability that not only suits Reaper's playstyle, but is necessary for his playstyle to be effective. So let's get into my 3 tips on how you can get the most out of Shadow Step. And tip number 3, it'll absolutely blow your mind. Just say it. So number 1, just like Wraith Form, Shadow Step cleanses you of most negative effects like Ash's Burn, Ana's Biotic Grenade, Illari's ult, etc. This is very useful as Reaper needs to play extremely cautious when Wraith is on cooldown, so he can use Shadow Step to cleanse instead and get right back into the action instead of sitting in a corner and waiting 8 seconds for Wraith Form to come off cooldown. And it's definitely worth it to cleanse damage over time abilities as they give ult charge to the enemy. Also, being able to cleanse them yourself allows Kiriko to save her Suzu from more dangerous situations. Alright, moving on to number 2. Are you the kind of Reaper that just stands there in place while casting Shadow Step? Or are you the cool one that jumps straight up into the air? Either way, you're doing it wrong. You're an easy target. Baptiste, Soldier, Ashe, they're all gonna melt you in that 0.992 seconds of you just standing there or falling slowly straight down. So what to do? Simply put, jump horizontally into cover while casting. This can drastically reduce the time that you're sitting out in the open before you enter your state of invulnerability. Easier said than done, I know. To master this ability, you need to be able to aim your Shadow Step while moving horizontally and timing it so you begin casting just after you leave the ground. Too early, and you'll just be standing in place like a statue. Too late, and you won't actually cast it. So how I practice this skill is actually going into the VAXTA workshop, which is usually used as an aim trainer, but I find it has ideal settings to practice my Shadow Steps as well. And for those that don't know about workshops, here's how to use them. First, click play in your main screen. Scroll over to custom games, click on create. Then go up to settings and over to the down arrow. Here you can enter the workshop's code. In our case, we want VAXTA. So I'll go ahead and enter that, click OK, and there we go. We now have all the standard settings for our aim trainer workshop. But for our purposes, we want to change the map and possibly the enemies. To do that, click on maps. Go all the way to the bottom and you're going to turn off Workshop Chamber. There's no cover to jump behind, so it's kind of useless. And then for me, I either use Temple of Anubis or Volskaya Industries. Today, I'm going to use the latter. So turn that on, go back, and down here, click on Workshop Settings. Here you can basically change anything in your workshop. we're going to scroll down to number of bots, then turn that down to 1. Now you may want bots bumbling around your map to give it a more realistic feel, in which case, go ahead and keep that at 8, and I'd suggest using the Temple of Anubis map. But I don't want that right now. So we're going to go back, and now we can start our workshop. First off, make sure to shoot around at warm up and it'll drop you into an empty room. A room that is perfect for practicing shadow steps. It has obstacles and pillars to jump behind. Great thing about VAXTA is it's already set to 0 cooldowns, so you can just keep practicing and practicing with no downtime. So I recommend choosing a target location where you want to teleport and try shadow stepping there while landing your original jump as far behind cover as possible. Especially if you're on controller, this is not such an easy skill to master, which is why we practice. I highly recommend doing this with no audio though, as you might never want to play Reaper again after hearing "Death appears" and "Cloaked in shadow" for the 300th time. Ideally, myself included, you want to get to the point where you are jumping horizontally subconsciously every time you shadow step. Even if there's no cover, moving to the side obviously makes you a slightly more difficult target to hit. Alright, the final tip, la pièce de résistance, the key to the mint. So remember I mentioned that Reaper is invulnerable for 1.008 seconds during his cast time of shadow step? Well, you can use that to dodge attacks while Wraith form is on cooldown. Most commonly, this is used to counter D.Va's ult because she has a convenient voice line indicating when her mech is gonna blow up. And to be honest, the timing is pretty easy as you do have just over a second of leeway. While it's probably easiest against D.Va, you can also use it against Doomfist and Bastion ults. And if you're feeling lucky, give it a try against Junkrat's Tire. So to those who still think Shadow Step is trash, consider this. I think everyone would agree that Kiriko's Suzu is one of, if not the strongest ability in the game. It gives 0.65 seconds of immunity. Shadow Step gives 1.008 seconds of immunity. Suzu cleanses most negative effects. Shadow Step cleanses most negative effects. Now, I'm not saying Shadow Step is anywhere near as strong as Suzu. It doesn't heal and it's not an AoE ability that can be used on teammates. But it is also a movement ability, and with a few quality of life changes, could also become one of the strongest abilities in the game. But as it stands, use these 3 tips to get the most out of your Shadow Steps and step up your Reaper gameplay. Until next time, may your footsteps be loud and your death blossoms bloody.